The Wasteland is a cruel, unforgiving place. Over 200 years after the bombs turned civilization to ash, the world remains broken, hostile, and determined to kill anything that dares to keep breathing. But through all of that, through the radiation, the mutants, and the betrayals, one thing has kept players coming back for over 25 years. It's not the weapons, it's not the vaults, it's the companions. The ones who walk beside you when every sane instinct says to walk alone. Some are heroes, some are monsters, and a few are so deeply broken that you wonder whether they're following you or you're the only thing keeping them from falling apart. So that's why today we're going to explain every Fallout companion explained in 27 minutes, what drives them, what breaks them, and why they matter more than most players realize. And yeah, it took me an unreasonable amount of time to compile all of this, but I hate myself, so here we are. Dogmeat, unconditional. So let's start where Fallout itself started. Not with a faction, not with a quest, with a dog. Dogmeat appears in the original Fallout near a junkyard in Junktown. His previous owner, an unnamed man who wore a leather jacket, is already dead. You recruit this dog either by wearing a leather jacket yourself, triggering recognition as a nod to Mad Max's iconic look, or by offering him an iguana on a stick. That's the price of gaming's most legendary companion, one reptile snack. And yet that simple recruitment hides a devastating design choice. Dogmeat in Fallout 1 has no self-preservation. None. The AI pathfinding sends him charging headfirst into burst fire, explosives, and the infamous force fields in the Mariposa military base that will kill him instantly if you don't lock him in a room beforehand. The developers knew this. They designed a companion whose loyalty was unconditional and whose survival was almost impossible. That's not an accident. That's a thesis statement. Fallout is telling you from the very first game, the Wasteland will take the things you love and it won't apologize. Fallout 2 brings Dogmeat back as a special encounter in the Cafe of Broken Dreams. More Easter egg than narrative companion, but carrying the same energy. Fallout 3 places a new Dogmeat in the scrapyard, already fighting raiders when you arrive. Like the Wasteland couldn't give this dog 5 minutes apiece. But it's Fallout 4's version that changes the formula. Found waiting at the Red Rocket truck stop as if he somehow knew you'd stumble out of Vault 111, Fallout 4's Dogmeat is unique. He never disapproves of your actions and can't be permanently dismissed. While he technically occupies a companion slot, the Lone Wanderer perk still functions with him around, making him the only companion the game mechanically treats as something other than a person. He fetches items, pins enemies, and looks at you with those brown eyes while you commit atrocities for the Institute. He's not a moral compass. He's a mirror that reflects whatever you are without flinching, and that's why Dogmeat has survived across every era of this franchise. He doesn't ask you to be better. He just walks beside you. In a series where every human companion eventually judges you for something, Dogmeat's silence isn't emptiness, it's grace. So, if unconditional loyalty is the simplest form a companion can take, then the original Fallout's human companions represent the first attempt at something far messier. Opinions, flaws, and a truly catastrophic understanding of where to aim a gun. The originals, Friendly Fire Ian is a former caravan guard found in Shady Sands, the first settlement in Fallout 1. He's experienced, he's tough, and he's willing to join you for a share of the loot. Sounds great on paper. In practice, Ian is one of the most notorious companion experiences in RPG history, and not because of his personality. It's because Ian will absolutely, without hesitation, spray you in the back while trying to hit a rat 3 tiles to your left. He starts with a 10mm pistol, but the moment you hand him anything with burst fire, you've essentially signed your own death warrant. This isn't an exaggeration. Entire forum threads exist cataloging the specific ways Ian has killed players through sheer incompetence. He's the companion equivalent of handing a loaded weapon to someone who thinks suppressive fire means fire at whatever is suppressing my view of the enemy, including my friend's spine. Yeah, that plan worked out really well for everyone standing in front of Ian. Tycho is the antidote. A desert ranger from Nevada found in Junktown's Scum Pit Bar, Tycho is disciplined, experienced, and tied to the ranger tradition that would eventually become the backbone of the NCR's military elite, where Ian feels like a guy who fell into adventuring because the alternative was unemployment. Tycho feels like a professional who chose this life. His existence in Fallout 1 is a quiet seed that blooms decades later in New Vegas, when the Rangers become one of the most respected fighting forces in the Wasteland. Katjaa rounds out the trio. Found in the Boneyard near the followers of the Apocalypse's library, she's nimble, prefers unarmed combat, and represents something the other two don't: intellectual curiosity. She's not following you for survival or duty. She wants to see what's out there. In a game where most motivations boil down to don't die, die, that's refreshingly human. Together, these three established every companion trope Fallout would spend the next 2 decades refining: the reckless fighter, the disciplined soldier, and the curious idealist. They proved something foundational. Traveling alone in Fallout is surviving. Traveling with someone is living. Though that sometimes means that you're occasionally shot in the back. So if the first Fallout gave us companions as rough concepts, Fallout 2 is where those concepts grew actual personalities, actual consequences, and in one memorable case, a companion so despicable that the game rewards you for hating him. Wasteland voices, walking arguments. Fallout 2 didn't just expand the companion roster, it expanded what companions were allowed to be. These weren't simple combat followers anymore. They were walking arguments about the Wasteland's contradictions. Sulik is found in Klamath working off a debt to the local barkeeper because his tribe's customs won't let him walk away from an obligation. He's searching for his kidnapped sister, Kurisu, and he speaks regularly to Grampy Bone, the spirit of his grandfather that he believes inhabits a bone pierced through his nose. On the surface, this sounds like quirky flavor text. It's not. Sulik represents an entirely different framework for surviving the apocalypse. While most Wastelanders scramble to rebuild pre-war structures, Sulik's tribal culture never depended on those things. He's not post-apocalyptic, he's parallel apocalyptic. His worldview didn't collapse because it was never built on the same foundation. Vic is one of the earliest companions you can recruit, a traitor found enslaved by the crime lord Metzger in the Den. He's directly tied to your main quest since he knows about the G-Key and your village's history. Vic isn't heroic, or particularly brave. He's a middle-aged guy who got in over his head, and his gratitude for being rescued is tinged with the understanding that he's useful to you, not special. John Cassidy runs the Spittoon on the outskirts of Vault City with a bad heart. Literally. The man has a cardiac condition, and if you give him Jet, Psycho, or Buffout, there is a real mechanical chance he drops dead on the spot. I think this might have been the first time a game looked a player in the eye and said, here's a companion. Also, here's a very specific way to accidentally murder him through negligence. Good luck. Cassidy doesn't have a grand destiny. He's just a tired man who's seen too much, drank too much, and somehow isn't done yet. And that makes him more relatable than half the protagonists in this series. Marcus is where the companion formula takes a genuinely bold turn. A super mutant who held the rank of captain in the Master's Army, the same army from Fallout 1, Marcus should be irredeemable. But in Fallout 2, you find him in Broken Hills, as the sheriff of a settlement where humans, ghouls, and super mutants coexist. Not peacefully, not perfectly, but they do coexist. Marcus doesn't apologize for his past. He simply chose differently and committed to that choice for decades. His return in New Vegas as the leader of Jacobstown proves his arc wasn't a one-game gimmick. It was genuine character evolution across multiple titles. That's rare in any medium, let alone one where the character is 8 feet tall and green. Gorrus deserves mention as possibly the most unexpected companion in the franchise. He's an intelligent Deathclaw from Vault 13 that disguises himself in a hooded cloak to avoid being attacked on sight, because nothing says inconspicuous like a 7-foot reptile in a robe, but beneath the absurdity is something touching. He's also a scholar and joins you on your journey to study the world before the Enclave finishes destroying his pack. His story becomes tragic when the Enclave exterminates the Vault 13 Deathclaws. Gorrus survives, but everything he belonged to doesn't. And then there's Myron, a teenage genius found in the Mordino family's headquarters in New Reno. Myron invented Jet using Brahmin dung fumes and slave labor. He's arrogant, he's a creep, and the game makes it abundantly clear he's responsible for untold suffering. His ending slide fits that perfectly. He dies, alone, forgotten, stabbed by a Jet addict in a back alley. Nobody remembers his name. The drug he created outlives him by centuries. Myron exists to prove that not every companion is worth saving. Kind of like a Chipotle bathroom. Nobody mourns what was lost in there. So if Fallout 2 gave companions depth and consequences, Fallout 3 asked a completely different question. What happens when millions of new players experience companions for the first time, and those companions have to justify why someone would follow you through hell? Loyalty's spectrum. Why follow you? Fallout 3 reimagined companions for a 3D open world and a mainstream audience. The best way to understand what Fallout 3 was doing is to examine 3 companions who represent completely different reasons someone might walk beside you into the worst places on Earth. Fox is found in Vault 87, one of the most horrifying locations in the game. Vault 87's experiment involved direct FEV exposure on its residents, transforming them into super mutants. In the middle of it, locked in a cell, is Fox, a super mutant who retained his intelligence and morality through a mutation that destroyed everyone else. He spent years in isolation, reading every terminal, educating himself, waiting. When you free him, he thanks you, reflects on humanity, and then picks up a Gatling laser and annihilates everything in the next room with the enthusiasm of someone who's been waiting decades for this exact moment. Despite being a super mutant, Fox only joins good karma characters. He's the companion who most directly rewards you for being decent, and his presence is a constant argument that goodness can survive the worst circumstances. He's also absurdly overpowered, which means the game is literally rewarding you for being good with an unkillable laser-wielding super mutant. Subtle, Bethesda, real subtle. Charon occupies the opposite end, not morally, but philosophically. A ghoul bodyguard found in Underworld's Ninth Circle bar, Charon is bound by a contract. Whoever holds it holds his loyalty. You don't earn his companionship through shared values. You buy it. The relationship begins as a transaction and never pretends otherwise. His behavior suggests conditioning, possibly brainwashing that hardwired obedience into his psychology. Is Charon loyal or programmed? Is there a difference? The game lets you sit with that discomfort, and it never goes away, kind of like the smell in Underworld. That probably doesn't go away either. Jericho is the companion Fallout 3 uses to test your limits. A retired raider living in Megaton, Jericho only joins evil karma characters. Where Fox rewards goodness, Jericho rewards cruelty, and that mirror is intentional. Either you bring him for the firepower or because you enjoy the company. Either answer says something about you. Fallout 3 also gave us Butch Deloria, your childhood bully turned reluctant rebel. Star Paladin Cross, a Brotherhood soldier representing her faction's idealism. Clover, a brainwashed slave whose existence raises uncomfortable questions. And Sergeant RL3, a Mr. Gutsy whose military programming hints at something darker. Each adds flavor, but Fox, Charon, and Jericho define Fallout 3's companion philosophy. Loyalty is a spectrum, and where you fall reveals more about you than any karma meter could. So if Fallout 3 turned companions into moral mirrors, New Vegas shattered those mirrors and rebuilt them into something far more complex. Because New Vegas didn't just give you companions with opinions. It gave you companions that are entire arguments about what the Mojave's future should look like. Mojave Arguments, philosophy with Guns New Vegas, hands you philosophical positions with legs and combat skills. Every recruitable character embodies a stance on loyalty, identity, and survival, and the game trusts you to disagree with all of them. Craig Boone is found in Novak, standing night watch atop a giant dinosaur statue. Boone is a former NCR 1st Recon sniper whose pregnant wife, Carla, was kidnapped and sold to the Legion by Jeannie Mae Crawford, the seemingly friendly motel proprietor. When Boone found out, he climbed into his sniper's nest atop the dinosaur and watched through his scope as Carla was being led away. Knowing what her fate would be, he put a bullet in her head, rather than let her live as a Legion slave. That's the first thing you learn about this man. The game drops that information like a grenade and watches you react. His personal quest forces Boone to confront the Bitter Springs massacre, where NCR soldiers fired on fleeing Great Khan civilians. Women, children, elderly. Under orders, Boone followed without question. His quest doesn't offer redemption. It offers processing. Can Boone live with what he's done? Maybe. But it's going to cost everything he has left. You might think that's as dark as New Vegas companions get. You'd be wrong. Veronica Santangelo is a Brotherhood scribe who punches things with a power fist and asks questions her faction doesn't want answered. Her personal quest asks her to find evidence the Brotherhood needs to change. She finds it. The Brotherhood responds by killing the people she tried to help, every time. The quest ends in tragedy because institutions don't change when one person asks nicely. They change when they have no other choice. And the Brotherhood always has one more bunker to hide in. Veronica's relationship with Christine Royce, explored across the Dead Money DLC, is told through subtext and separated narratives. They loved each other. Elder Elijah separated them. Christine was sent to the Big Empty and subjected to horrific experiments. Veronica never found out what happened. It was a pain connecting those threads across different DLCs, but the payoff is one of gaming's most honest depictions of love and institutional cruelty. Arcade Gannon is a doctor for the followers of the Apocalypse, but he's hiding the biggest secret in the Mojave. He's actually the son of an Enclave officer, with former Enclave remnants among his closest family friends. His quest gathers these remnants for the Battle of Hoover Dam, forcing Arcade to reconcile his hatred of the Enclave's ideology with his love for the individuals who raised him. Depending on your choices, Arcade becomes a hero, a Legion prisoner, or takes his own life. That range isn't cruelty for its own sake. It's the game acknowledging that some questions don't have clean answers. answers. Raul Tejada is a ghoul mechanic voiced by Danny Trejo. If that doesn't sell you, nothing will. A pre-war gunslinger alive for over 200 years, Raul carries the weight of multiple lifetimes. His quest asks whether he should pick up his guns again or accept his fighting days are over. It's quiet, contemplative, and works because Raul himself is quiet. Underneath the dry jokes is a profound exhaustion that 2 centuries of survival apparently gives you. Raul makes you realize surviving the apocalypse isn't the hard part. Surviving the centuries after is. Cass is a caravan trader whose business was destroyed by the Van Graffs and Crimson Caravan Company, daughter of John Cassidy from Fallout 2, meaning alcoholism and heart problems run in the family like a genetic punchline. She's blunt, foul-mouthed, and the most honest voice in the Mojave. While every faction sells their vision, Cass makes it clear they're all terrible, but some are less terrible. So pick one and let's get a drink. She's honestly my favorite kind of companion. No delusions, no grand philosophy, just whiskey and brutal honesty. Lily Bowen is a nightkin suffering from schizophrenia caused by prolonged stealth boy use. Before her transformation, she was a grandmother. After it, she still thinks she is. Her quest forces you to decide her medication. Full dosage means stability, but losing pre-war memories? Half dosage means danger, but holding on to who she was. What makes you who you are? Your memories or your sanity? Rex is a cyber dog with a deteriorating brain whose quest forces you to choose whose brain he receives, essentially deciding who your dog becomes. ED-E is an iBot whose cross-country journey from Adams Air Force Base is logged in audio recordings triggered throughout the game, with additional context in the Lonesome Road DLC. New Vegas made players agonize over a dog's brain surgery and get invested in a robot's travel diary. That's proof writing matters more than graphics every day of the week. New Vegas set a bar most RPGs still haven't cleared. So naturally, Fallout 4 approached companions from a completely different angle, one that stopped asking, "What does this companion believe?" and started asking, "What does this companion think of you?" Intimate judgment. They're watching. Fallout 4 introduced the affinity system, where every companion tracks your decisions and develops opinions based on your behavior. Every companion is essentially grading your performance, and some grade harshly. I've never felt more evaluated by people who don't exist. Nick Valentine is the standout amongst the rest. He's a synth detective with the uploaded memories of a pre-war cop. Nick knows everything that defines him was borrowed from a dead man. His quest involves hunting Eddie Winter, the mobster who murdered the original Nick's fiancée. It's a revenge story belonging to someone who no longer exists, carried out by someone who arguably never did. Nick is the franchise's deepest examination of identity. Piper Wright is a reporter who publishes public occurrences in Diamond City and firmly believes that truth matters most, even when nobody wants to hear it. She's idealistic in a world that punishes idealism, and her arc involves confronting whether her crusade for truth might endanger the people she loves. In a game full of morally gray factions, Piper still believes asking hard questions is worth the risk. Paladin Danse presents one of Fallout 4's most effective twists. A Brotherhood soldier who despises synths, Danse discovers he is one. His identity, beliefs, and hatred all built on a lie. The Brotherhood demands his execution. Danse might agree. His arc asks whether identity is what you're made of or what you choose, and the game refuses a comfortable answer. Curie begins as a Miss Nanny robot in Vault 81 and can transfer into a synth body. Her arc asks when a machine becomes a person. Curie's answer, when you can feel wonder. This makes watching her discover the Commonwealth with genuine amazement is one of Fallout 4's purest experiences. Another companion, Kate, is an Irish pit fighter with a chem addiction, sold into slavery by her parents as a child. Her quest takes her to Vault 95, designed to get recovering addicts re-addicted by planting a hidden stash. Kate's recovery happens inside a building engineered to prevent exactly that. The cruelty is layered perfectly. Deacon lies about everything, including whether he's lying about lying. A railroad agent who fabricates backstories and tests your trust. His real story may involve a wife killed by anti-synth violence, or may not. That uncertainty is the point. It's the kind of philosophical knot that would make a professor weep, delivered by a man who claims he was a Deathclaw once. Another super mutant companion, though far from Fox, Strong searches for the milk of human kindness, because he heard of it from Rex Goodman while he was performing Macbeth at Trinity Tower and took it literally. MacReady is the grown-up kid mayor from Little Lamplight in Fallout 3, now a mercenary searching for a cure for his son's illness. Hancock is a ghoul who governs good good neighbor with revolutionary ideals and a knife. Preston Garvey is one of the last survivors of the Minute Men, a Boston militia group that was formed to defend against raiders. He means well, but his constant requests to aid another settlement border on psychological warfare. X6-88 is a highly advanced Gen 3 synth courser, the best Synthetic Soldiers Institute has to offer. His institutional loyalty is chilling because he never questions it. And Codsworth is a domestic model Mr. Handy that was owned by the sole survivor before the bombs fell and waited 200 years for their return and somehow isn't resentful, making him either the most loyal companion or the most repressed robot in existence. The Chipotle employee working their 15th straight shift has nothing on Codsworth's dedication. So if Fallout 4 mastered the personal connection between companion and player, the franchise still had one final frontier. What happens when companions exist in a world never designed for them? New frontiers. Against all odds, as many of you may be familiar with, Fallout 76 launched without human NPCs, which meant no companions. That was like opening a restaurant and forgetting to hire a chef. When Wastelanders arrived in 2020, it brought allies into a game never built for them, and it worked. Beckett is a former Blood Eagle raider trying to rescue his brother Frankie from the gang he left behind. His honesty makes him land. He doesn't dress up his history. He was part of something horrible, and now he's clawing his way out. His quest culminates in confronting the Blood Eagle leadership and choosing between revenge and mercy, defining whether his escape is clean or just different violence wearing a better mask. Commander Sophia Daguerre is a pre-war astronaut who crash-landed in Appalachia carrying fragmented memories and an AI named Athena that may have once controlled her mind. Her arc asks whether agency itself can be manufactured, and that question hits differently in a multiplayer game where developers design the choices you think you're making freely. Both prove companions work in any format. They need to feel like people, and people are messy and uncertain. So if Fallout 76 proved companions survive multiplayer, the TV show asked the final question: can the companion dynamic work be stripped of every game mechanic entirely? The Fallout TV show answered by restructuring companions completely. Lucy McLean, Maximus, and the Ghoul aren't recruited through dialogue options. They collide, separate, and collide again, forming bonds through shared survival. The Ghoul, Cooper Howard, is a pre-war actor who spent 200 years becoming the Wasteland's most dangerous cynic. His dynamic with Lucy is adversarial and mentoring simultaneously. He represents everything her vault education taught her to fear. She represents everything he lost. Neither would choose the other, and that's why it works. Maximus is a Brotherhood aspirant whose journey from squire to soldier mirrors every companion arc about identity the games have told. He lies, stumbles into authority he didn't earn, and spends the season deciding whether his institution deserves devotion. His dynamic with Lucy is warmer, but equally complicated. They want trust, but their factions make trust dangerous. The show proves the companion dynamic transcends its medium. Strip away affinity bars, perk bonuses, and inventory management, and what remains is the oldest story structure in existence. People who shouldn't be together, stuck together, slowly becoming essential to each other. Every Fallout companion, from a dog outside a junkyard in 1997 to a synth detective in Diamond City to a ghoul cowboy on a streaming service, exists to answer one question. If everything is gone, does connection still matter? Every single one of them, across 25 years, 7 games, and a television series, answers the same way. Yes, it matters more than anything else, because in a world where everything is trying to end you, choosing to walk beside someone instead of walking alone is the most human thing you can do. And that's why we keep coming back, not for the weapons or the vaults or the factions, for them. If you enjoyed this video and want to see what the hell are all the Fallout power armor models, click the video on screen.